We finally got some hot action. They finally had sex. Finally. And it was pretty hot too. Anyways, we're on chapter 25, still in the eyes of Vivian. Let's get into it. Chapter 25. The early morning light casts soft shadows on the floor. Stillness weighed heavy in the air, and every movement sounded too loud as I inched my way off the mattress. It was 5 after 7, the earliest I had ever woken up on a weekend since my crack of dawn flight to Eldora for Agnes's wedding years ago, but I needed to leave before Dante woke up. My feet grazed the rug. "Where are you going?" The rough, sleepy rumble of Dante's voice touched my back. I froze, my toes curled in the plush triple ply while my heart took off on a gallop. Stay calm, stay cool, even if his voice sparked a host of X-rated memories. Look in the mirror when I'm fucking you. You like this? Watching me wreck your pussy while you make a mess all over my cock? Heat crawled over my cheeks, but I attempted a neutral expression when I turned. Dante sat up against the headboard, charcoal silk sheets rumpled around his waist. A smooth expanse of olive skin stretched over the naked, sculpted planes of his shoulders and tapered down to a lean waist. His V-cut arrowed beneath the sheets like an invitation to pick up where we left off last night. I forced my gaze up only to find his eyes waiting for mine. A knowing smirk tugged on his lips as he leaned back, oozing casual arrogance and pure male satisfaction. Smug bastard. Yet it didn't stop butterflies from erupting in my stomach. "I'm going to work," I said breathlessly, remembering his question. "Legacy Ball crisis. It's urgent." "It's Saturday." "Crises don't operate on a work week schedule." I discreetly tugged on the hem of my top. I wore one of Dante's old college t-shirts, and it fell somewhere between scandalous and mid-thigh. His eyes flickered down and darkened. The heat spread from my face to somewhere south of my stomach. "Perhaps not, but that's not why you're sneaking out of the bed at 7 in the morning, Miyakara." Some of the sleep evaporated from his voice, leaving satin and smoke behind. "No?" My voice squeaked like a door hinge in need of oil. "No." His gaze met mine again. Challenge glinted in his depths. "Who's the one running now?" The unspoken words sank into my bones. "You wanted to talk," he said. "Let's talk." I swallowed the nerves lodged in my throat. "Okay, then." I'd pictured our conversation happening a little differently. I would be fired up and full of indignation, and dressed in my best outfit, of course, not sitting on the edge of his bed smelling like him and wearing his t-shirt while the memory of his touch was imprinted on my skin. But he was right. We needed to talk, and there was no point in delaying the inevitable. I addressed the elephant in the room first. "Heath came over last night because he said I texted him about wanting to get back together." A shadow crossed Dante's face at the mention of Heath, but he didn't interrupt. "I didn't." "Well," I amended my statement, "he showed me his phone, and there is a text that looks like it was from me, but I never sent it. Maybe it was a prank or a hack. I don't know, but it doesn't matter." My answer to his proposal hadn't changed since the last time we spoke. He refused to accept that, and we went back and forth for hours until you showed up. I should have kicked Heath out long before Dante came home. However, I'd never quite gotten over my guilt for how my parents treated him when they found out about our relationship. Vivian is a Lau. She's meant to marry someone great, not a so-called entrepreneur with a company no one's heard of. You are not good enough for her, and you never will be. 2 years later, the memory of my father's harsh words still make me wince. Did you say no because you no longer have feelings for him? Or because you feel obligated to keep our arrangement? Dante's face was unreadable. Doesn't matter. We're getting married either way. I threw his words from last night back at him. His mouth tightened. I wouldn't ask if I didn't. Yet you haven't answered my question about whether this is still business. Dante had indirectly admitted it wasn't last night, but I took anyone says during sex with a grain of salt. His lips parted at a sardonic breath. How many times are you going to make me say it? Just once, I said softly. He regarded me with dark hooded eyes. The clock ticked with deafening precision, and my soft cotton t-shirt suddenly felt too heavy. Business. Would be staying in California and celebrating a deal I'd worked a year on instead of rushing back to see you. He finally said, his voice low and loaded with gravel. Business would be completing my DC trip instead of waking my pilot up for a last-minute flight home. In all my years as CEO, I've never cut a work trip short twice, Vivian, and both those instances were because of you. A wry twist of his lips. So no, it's not just fucking business anymore. The butterflies took flight again, soaring so high the velvety tips of their wings brushed my heart. I grasped for an appropriate response before I settled on the only words that came to mind. Oh. Ironic amusement ghosted through his gaze. Yes, oh, he said dryly. Your turn, Mia Cara. Why did you say no to Heath? His tone was lazy, but there was nothing lazy about the way he watched me, like a predator locked in on his prey, his muscles coiled with tension. Because I don't have romantic feelings for him anymore, I said, my voice soft, and because I might have them for someone else. Now that the emotional shock from last night was cleared, I realized my conversation with Heath had provided so much needed clarity. Once upon a time, I loved him, and I felt guilty for the way things had ended between us. But it'd been 2 years. I wasn't the same person I'd been when we dated, and I hadn't felt anything except surprise, sadness, and a bit of annoyance when we talked. All this time, I thought I'd missed Heath, but I missed the idea of him. I missed having a partner. I missed being loved and being in love. Unfortunately, I could no longer find those things with him. The morning sunlight filtered through the curtains and gilded Dante's face, casting soft shadows beneath his brow and cheekbones. He was so still he resembled a golden sculpture in repose, but the air sparked like dry kindling. It's not just business for you, I forced back the uprising of nerves in my stomach, and it's not just duty for me. The air turned dense, heavy with meaning. A faint car horn sounded dozens of stories below, but we didn't look away. Good. A rough sound brushed my skin with startling intimacy. My pulse drummed into my ear. I smoothed a clammy hand over my thigh, unsure what to do or say next. Do we kiss? Continue the conversation? Go our separate ways? I stuck with the safest option. Well, I'm glad we had that talk. I really do have a work crisis, so I'll get back to my room. This is your room. I gave Dante a dubious stare. Maybe the lack of caffeine had affected his memory? I hate to tell you this, but this is not, in fact, where I've been sleeping the past 5 months, I said patiently. My room is at the other end of the hall. You made a big show of distinguishing it was when I moved in, remember? Yes, but I think it's clear the boundaries were set that day are no longer applicable. Dante notched a dark brow. Don't you agree? My pulse tripped into overdrive. What are you suggesting? That we set new boundaries. No more separate bedrooms. No more sneaking out in the mornings, his expression darkened. And no more contact with Heath. Normally, I would have chafed at Dante's attempt to control who I could talk to. But after last night's debacle, I understood where he was coming from. If he had an ex who was hell-bent on breaking us up, I wouldn't want him talking to her either. What a shame, I said. I planned to invite him over for dinner. Dante didn't look amused. It was a joke. Nothing. I sighed. On that note, if we're setting new boundaries, I have a few of my own. One, I ticked I tick them off my fingers. No more scowling at your default expression. Your face is too close to freezing that way. And I'd rather not wake up to the Grinch for the rest of my life. I'm much better looking than the Grinch, he grumbled, and if people stop pissing me off, I wouldn't scowl so much. Other people aren't the problem. Remember when we passed by the dog park around Christmas and saw those adorable huskies? You glared at them so hard they started howling. I wasn't glaring at them, he said impatiently. I was glaring at their outfits. Who dresses their dogs up as reindeers? It's ridiculous. It was Christmas. At least they weren't dressed as elves. Dante's frown deepened. We'll work on that later. Anyway, I moved on before we veered too deep into the argument about canine fashion. Back to boundaries. No more disappearing for weeks at a time with less than 48 hours notice unless it's truly an emergency. No more shutting down when you're upset and things don't go your way. And my teeth tugged on the bottom lip. We should commit to at least a one date every week. Most people dated before their engagement, but we weren't doing everything backwards. We were doing everything backwards. Late was better than never, I suppose. If you want to spend more time with me, Miyakara, you only have to say so. Dante's drawl slipped back into a velvety cadence. My cheeks warmed. That's not the point. Not the whole point, anyway. We're getting married in a few months, and we haven't gone on a single real date. We've been on dates. We went to the Valhalla Gala. That was a social obligation. We went to Bali. That was a family obligation. He fell silent. Those are my terms. Do you accept? His answer came less than 2 seconds later. Yes. Great. I hid my surprise at his ready agreement. Well, God, this was awkward. Why was peace so much harder than war? We can sort out the bedroom logistics later. For now, I need to fix my work problem before I'm blacklisted. Trying to find a last-minute venue in Manhattan was like trying to find an earring at the bottom of the Hudson River. Impossible. But if I wanted to save the legacy ball and my career, I needed to find a way to make the impossible possible fast. Is there something that requires you to be in the office? No, I said cautiously. Not really. I mostly needed to brainstorm alternatives so I can call them on Monday. Perfect. Fix it over breakfast. A smile flickered over Dante's mouth. We're going on our first date. Ooh! Yes, I'm loving it. Chapter 25 concludes. Date number 1. Real date. Dante and Vivian. Getting married in a few months. Okay, I like this. Anyways, get ready for 26, guys. Toodles.